In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. A life beyond the mind. Dear viewers, I am fascinated tonight by an idea that I actually managed to more consciously grasp in a lecture I gave before this one. But I was thinking about how to write the title and it was becoming too long, so I just turned it into a life beyond the mind. And so I have tasked myself in this moment as a member of the human species to explain in the presence of all that is and the system admin of this reality how I have found, or how it is real to me, a sort of life beyond the mind. Now what's fascinating is we are living in a world where traditionally reality has been compartmentalized in 3 levels, but in these modern times it's even been reduced to 2. Okay, so people right now in 2025, they might look back at their ancestors and feel they are more evolved, but the reason they are more evolved is because they're like we were accessing 3 rooms, imagine, right? There were like 3 rooms to clean up, okay, and instead we ignored one of them and now we're in 2 rooms. Okay, and so most of the attention that was meant to be for 3 rooms, imagine, you know, to deal what's in them, has now gone to 2 rooms. Now, what are these 2 rooms? What are the 3 rooms? See, the traditional view, they had body, mind, soul. So as a 90s kid, born in 91, as I was being raised, I remember my father had a bookshelf, and if I remember correctly, there was a book there called Body, Mind, Spirit. Okay. Now, I understood the word body. I had a sort of sense that, all right, inside brains, there's minds. Okay. And the word spirit was there, and it was more of a kind of like my youthful imagination envisioning it rather than actually coming into terms with the reality of it. Similar to someone imagining they're driving a car and then someone actually driving a car. It is, in contrast, so different from what you imagine because there is so many details and the value of the moment is different, especially when you drive, because it's not a joke. I've been driving for a while. Anyways, to go back to this body, mind, soul, the traditional view, okay? Now, the main point of this episode, it's coming through how a sentence has provided me a vision, and really this was the idea. I made a claim, like I was saying something in the previous lecture, and what I said was so profound that, again, this lecture has been dedicated to that, a life beyond the mind. So, folks, I made the contrast. So, this is the core of the idea. I was like, all right, humans were living in a jungle, okay, right? And we were in the food chain. And over time, something happened that gave us an ability to step out of the food chain, okay? Now, what is that leap? Okay, so from this butt naked entity in like, fighting off like tigers, you know, to suddenly now a suited up individual, living not in accordance to a random, not in accordance to nature telling you what to do, but now we have our own, living our own organized realities over nature. Okay, so I'm pretty much saying, okay, so we went from the jungle of the body to cities of the mind. Okay, where we're now living more as minds than bodies, and what comes with living as a mind, the acknowledgement of all that is also included in language. So really, if you really want to kind of be like, okay, how are human beings civilized, is because not only did we notice more than the environment, we managed to, in some sense, write our own code over nature's program and live in accordance to that. Okay, but the idea was that we were in an objective reality, and then we had a subjective awareness, we had a greater awareness, and then we know that means we separated from the environment, right? So most creatures are bound by their environment their whole lives, right? So we managed to notice the environment, and now we've come into a subjective reality. Okay, and I've given many lectures explaining this notion. So, in regards to how, there's your inner realms are subjectively functioning. So, to me, it appeared the same shift from the jungles of the body to the cities of the mind. Now I'm envisioning we are actually behind our eyes in the jungle, like in the same way there were objects. Okay, let me simplify this. Imagine a jungle, objective entities like, predator, prey, devouring each other, and all of this. Now, when you look at civilized human society, like in a city, it's not a jungle like that. It's not like people are like killing each other all the time. Rather, it's more of a subjective. The intensity's gone on a subjective level. So, right now, objectively, we're civilized, but we are subjectively savage. Okay, right? And I feel there needs to be another evolutionary step here. Like it's what makes sense. It's like looking at something, looking at half of a painting, and being like, okay, where's the rest, right? So think of it this way: the body came in earlier, or let me say it this way. From an objective reality, we shifted to a subjective reality. And now I'm wondering, from technically it would be like from the jungle of the mind, how do we go to the city of the soul? To how do we go from the mind's jungle to the soul's city? Okay, so I feel there's going to be another shift here. In the same way the creature stood up from its two legs and in some sense got access to a sight that it didn't have when it was four-limbed, we've reached that point in human history where human beings are becoming conscious that they don't have to be looping language. So we are reaching that point in history that, think of it this way, like somebody's walking becomes second nature. Now, imagine instead of walking, it was like subjectifying oneself, thinking of oneself as an idea. After some point, you don't think about it, it's automatic. So now in 2025, the way human beings are being raised here, right? So what we're seeing is that in the same way that we don't think about walking, we don't think about that we're a specific individual. We know we are like a specific individual. Okay, but to me, I feel that really the question of what is the human intelligence, there is a separation from what is the human and what is intelligence. Okay, so just because there's human intelligence doesn't mean the intelligence is just limited to the human experience. And this shift, so in some sense, let's say, what is a life beyond This is what I'm doing here in this lecture. So I'm saying, all right, we want to know what a life beyond the mind is, okay? And I've started this lecture by saying, all right, we were in an objective environment. We managed to notice the objective environment. And after we noticed the objective environment, we were in some sense aware of things that beings as objects in the environment were not aware of. Okay, so I'm saying it's like, okay, so for example, let's say we look at squirrels, okay, or we look at birds, and we still haven't seen in these other species a sense of like, yo, man, what are we all doing? Like, climbing trees. What are we all doing? Just building nests. Okay, so something in the human experience made it kind of shift dimension in intelligence. Okay, it's like it was going horizontally, then it suddenly went vertically. Okay, now the way I think about it is this way: certain things happened that caused that awareness. Now, similarly, what is the contrast? It's like in front of me, I've kind of seen how humans, uh like animals in nature, like wild nature, like imagine, like I've seen how we went from Tarzan, right, to in some sense like Wall Street. Okay, so I can see that contrast, and I could see that the major part of it was that we had to ignore nature. Do you understand? We had to kind of like, it was like we accessed another way of looking reality, and we based our next reality on that awareness, right? So we became aware that we don't have to be in this nature's ecosystem loop. Okay, and we started making different decisions that brought us out of that. Now in 2025, okay, it's like on an ideal, it's like human beings thinking they are the idea rather than an unknown awareness to the known idea, is where I think that shift's going to happen. I feel like, or let me say it this way, I feel that we were just these unconscious, let's say animalistic entity. We became conscious, and we managed to tame ourselves because we turned ourselves into an idea that could change. That means, like, your body can't change just because you will it to, like, instantly, right? But when it comes to the nature of the mind, you can. You could have an assumption and then suddenly see that assumption's wrong, and totally your perspective's changed. So, there was a way we were living. We stopped living that way because we managed to be aware of the moment in a different way. And now I'm saying, okay, I think the same thing's happening now, but on a subjective level, where from a subjective jungle, we're going to that which is beyond it. Okay, and we don't have names for it. That means when humans were living like savages, they didn't call themselves human, right? But then they reached the awareness and the behavior of a different nature, and they called that human. So really, for human beings, it's of the modern era in 2025, it's like we have to start noticing that we don't have not, like, even though we have our body's life, we have our mind's life, we have an unknown life where, let's just for now say, your soul's life. And the soul's life works in values that are very different. So think of it this way: we were in the environment was telling us what to do. Now we've told ourselves what to do. Now the next phase is we realize the environment is not just the world. You see, I sometimes have looked at reality and I'm like, something doesn't make sense here. God could have created existence and that's it. Why the movement? That means, why is reality, why is this world like a film? Why is it not like a photograph? Why is there movement in it? Okay, why couldn't it just be like measured nouns? Why is it a verb? Okay, and it's because the point of it is not a static analysis, and we human beings have been conditioned in civilization and society to look at things in regards to just contained and noun like. Do you know? So we were just living an objective life, we accessed a subjective life. Now we've been living a subjective for some time. What other life are we accessing? I think it's about the realization that what we call human is actually a state. And it could be a range. It could be like from, I mean, this is very far in the future, but it could be like from this state to that state, it's considered human consciousness. From this part of the electromagnetic spectrum to this part of the electromagnetic spectrum, we consider that's the capability of the human eyes, for example. To me, I feel something strange. I at first I felt it was as easy as like, hey, everybody else been in an advanced civilization, but now I'm beginning to see. I feel it's a completely different shift in the nature of how we identify to the moment. That means when you really look at the human experience, it's all been about how some sort of force intelligently identifies with reality, right? And human beings that identify incorrectly, in some sense, they suffer. Why? You see, it's probably the addition of a third reality. What that means is, right now, throughout the day, you're an object, so you make objective calculations. You're conscious of objects, okay? Now, we in this modern era, we've entered a sort of linguistic simulation, so it's subjective, right? Now, so you have a subjective sort of reality to deal with, right? So there's a room where you're an object in, then there's a room where you can navigate as any subject, but then there is the navigator, which is more like an unknown force and presence. So I feel human beings right now, they're objects. In order to get close to each other, they have to like physically move towards each other. But when it comes to subjectively, like like two people can get on the phone, and it's as if like communication is a sort of teleportation of reality. But uh, how do I explain this? Honestly, I'm just looking at the moment, and I feel what I've picked up is a new way that life's gonna happen. The same contrast we had from being creatures living in in jungles, you know, in wilderness. We're going to, and we shifted to now living as civilized human beings. I feel there's another one where this current way, civilized way we're living is now becoming kind of savage compared to the new awareness that is being found. I have been thinking of what would a life beyond this be like? And it's so funny because I'm in here, the visualizations are limited to you. We are ultimately a force, and it's kind of like there's this unknown force moving, and the way it moves, it can get to know reality and it makes reality known. It's like life is about how do you handle yourself as an object? How do you handle yourself as a subject? How are you handling the awareness to objects and subjects before a decision or activation is made? To me, a life beyond the mind, if anybody says what is beyond the mind, I will say it is unknown. I will also say that that life most likely doesn't have the same values because like cavemen had different values and a different awareness than the civilized modern man. Okay? So as awareness has increased, behavior has changed. As behavior has changed, one's path has changed. So right now, we are reaching that point where I feel the species is going to get a global awareness update, and human beings are becoming sensitive that to be alive does not mean you're just a surviving object and you're just a praised subject, a validated subject. You see, people don't need to validate, like, see, it's funny. They say everybody needs love and everybody needs to be acknowledged, and people are living such, lonely hidden lives that, just be kind to everyone whenever you can. Like, I understand this, but I'm looking at reality, and it's all about your values. That means if I want to truly live as a non-physical being, that means the non-physical should be valued more. People are going towards what they value, but on another level, subconsciously, there's emotions there as well. Do you know? Life is so fascinating where it's kind of like it. I don't know how to say it. A life beyond the mind is a question of a life beyond purpose and a life beyond current ways that we're being. In my experience, the human intelligence, it has an objective understanding of reality, but the meaning of that, like it sees an objective place, but what this objective place means, the meaning is subjective, and how the meaning arises is if there's motion. So it's like first you need somewhere, then you need something separate to that somewhere, then you need that thing that's separate to the environment to move in the environment. And as it moves in the environment, if it can accumulate awareness, it is generating meaning. It's like, all right, so I'm not the whole world now. I'm this, like, one part of the world right now. Okay, and as this separate part of the world, as I interact with the world, a new level of meaning arises. So I'm telling you that it's like when you open your eyes and in front of me I'm seeing like a tree. Okay, so I can see a tree in front of my eyes. But in regards to everything else, how do I say it? It's not like how do I know that object is called a tree? In front of my eyes, I see the object, so I see something. And I also notice that I'm separate from it. That's why it can be named and formed. Just to even name something is a separate act. Just to identify something is to be separate, really. How can you identify? How can oneness identify itself? Only somebody's that's separate that can identify, for example, with unity. Because we're existing, because we're shaped, we're identifying. Wow, that means reality doesn't necessarily have to be physical or non-physical. It could be that based on our position, we have this sort of access. It could be that this is a place where it's actually based on presence, and we have conditioned ourselves based in accordance to personality. Do you understand? That means sometimes I look at this world and I'm like, how is the world present actually, and how am I giving it meaning? Right? It's as if like my eyes seeing something physical, that's one reality. And then the thing I've seen, what it means to me is the secondary reality. I'm trying to say that you gotta become aware of your position in reality. In front of your eyes, I say that there's an outer realm you gotta deal with. Behind your eyes, there's an inner realm to deal with. Because for a long time, I have actually lived in my inner realms and moved a lot in my inner realms. I can tell you that the force, that the intelligent force that we are, that moves reality, actually has an awareness before to the reality before it moves reality. That means before I'm saying what I'm saying, I have access to these options. It's like, okay, let me say it this way. Like the way I talk is that in my inner realms I see something, and then I'm like I vocalize that. Okay, but what I see is a selection. So it's like the brain's like, all right, man, this is what you see. This is what you have access to. And then what selects out of everything, that sense of free will, like we say we have free will, right? But what is the self? Do you know? And I find it very fascinating because you have atheists looking at the theist and being like, yo, man, God is an idea. It doesn't exist, right? But at the same time, all we human beings, right? The idea of ourself, does it exist? Can I touch the idea of you? I could, for example, give you a high five, but I cannot touch the idea of you. That means the idea of you, everything on an ideological level, is technically intangible yet visible. Okay, so to live a life beyond the mind would in some sense be like asking and saying, actually it's like saying, what is there more than this objective scenario, and what is there more than all the subjective meaning? So a life beyond the mind is a life for an intelligence that in some sense has matured beyond meaning. That means you're not looking for meaning anymore. And perhaps your presence remembers. Or another way of saying this, your soul remembers its original command. Sometimes I feel true happiness is not per se doing, you did the right thing, or you made the right choice. Sometimes I think true happiness is when we find ourselves in a moment we feel we are destined for. There's something brilliant in that. I don't know how to say it. And usually those moments, I think, are original. I think there's something very huge. When I was younger, life was about, good and bad, right? Are you going to a good place, or are you going to a bad place? But now it's more like the dualities between originality and the simulated. So is the moment original, or is the moment covered in simulations? Do you understand? That means like right now, who's speaking to you, I know that my body's a simulation for some time. I know that the idea of me and the way my attention is now to the moment is because of the way my attention is simulated like this now. But what is truly being here? And where does the efforts of the human experience go? So many human beings, so many different lives, so many different realities seen. And at some point comes the question of what is the point of energy expressing in this unique way? Do you know, I feel we are living lives in a world that we don't fully understand. It's like we can't fully know the world. We can't fully know ourselves because we can't know fully the world, right? At some point, to me, it's like human life shifted from me being in my sphere of self-simulated meaning and to some degree realize what other will moves the moment. That means you take any moment of your life. You can do this right now. Take any moment in your life, a memory or anything, right? A moment of your life, and just realize I'm trying to say the soul's life is in how it's present, okay? The mind's life is a calculation, it's an analysis. The body's life, it's a movement. Oh, it's strange. It's like life is starting to be not something that really a person can, how do I say it? It's not like all of it has meaning. It's kind of like how you look at it gives it meaning, right? But then the question of what it actually is there, and it's bizarre. You know, on some level, it does get on my nerves that there's all this design and there's all this stuff happening, and you know there's a chance that the explanations on what's actually going on may surpass our ability to understand reality. You know, every generation of humans have opened their eyes on this world with the aim of comprehending what it is, just figuring out what's going on. Like right now, if I ask you, whoever you are listening, like, do you know what's going on here in this world? And if the answer is yes, then you haven't looked at it deeply enough. Because whose claim is victorious? My biggest thing is every day I wake up and I'm like, what's the most important value here? Is it human or is it beyond human? Is it physical or is it beyond physical? Is it based on the body or is it beyond the body? Is it based on the mind or is it beyond the mind? Is it based on the soul or is it beyond the soul? And what is beyond the soul is just divine command. So somebody going from, if I don't know, I guess just to give it justice, uh, somebody living a life beyond the mind means they are living beyond, uh, they're living beyond form. Yeah. They're living beyond form. So if you can figure out what is more valuable than form, you're already living a life beyond the mind. Anyways, thank you for listening. This is how far this lecture goes for tonight. And keep in mind, guys, the main point, like something I really wanted to like get across here, is that I honestly feel like humans are changing. Okay, and it's not just the environment, it's also how we have been living in our inner environment. It's not just the outer environment. Okay, and the human being, one thing is common, it's a creature of expansion and exploration. You know, I think all human beings, they have expressed in their lifetime a sort of expansion and exploration, right? You've explored reality and you've expanded your awareness, your meaning, your assets, whatever. All right, so I don't know. I feel we are just like how we shifted from the jungle to the city. Now we're shifting from the consciousness of civilized human identity to something else. I still don't know what that thing is, but now I do have a sense that there's another leap coming. But what would that leap be like? I don't know yet. But I know that it's a different awareness and different values. Do you know that means a person in the city, they are valuing their mind's life more than their body's life? Do you know? Or they, at some point, you tend to. We've reached that time in history where who you are may be more important than what you are. But anyways, guys, there's so much we don't see, and if we do see something, it is the higher power's mercy. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Thank you for listening.